A millionaire, known for his lavish parties and elitist friends, decided to pull a prank that would supposedly amuse his wealthy circle. With his estate prepped for an exclusive evening gathering, he instructed his assistant to invite a cleaning lady, specifically a black cleaning lady, to the event, not as staff, but as a guest. The idea was that her presence would contrast so dramatically with the glitzy surroundings and high society attendees that she'd serve as the butt of a cruel joke. The invitation was sent under the pretense of a social gathering meant to celebrate every role in society, but it was laced with sarcasm. He never expected her to show up, and if she did, he thought her presence would be uncomfortable, maybe even humiliating. But the lady who received the invitation had a different story to tell. She was a professional cleaning lady, proud of her work and more proud of her self-respect. When she opened the elegant envelope and read the gold-embossed invitation, she understood immediately what was happening. She'd seen that tone before, disguised courtesy masking mockery. She'd spent years reading body language, hearing whispers behind closed doors as she polished floors and straightened silverware. But this time, she wasn't going to play the part they wrote for her. This time, she would walk into the scene, not as a prop, but as a presence. She made preparations silently. She didn't tell anyone of the invitation, nor did she decline. Instead, she carefully pulled out the best outfit she owned, one she'd been saving for a day when she could celebrate herself without shame. She made her entrance in a classic black evening gown that shimmered subtly under the chandelier lights. Her makeup was flawless, her natural hair styled like royalty. When she arrived, heads turned not in scorn, but in genuine curiosity. She didn't fidget. She didn't avoid eye contact. She walked in slowly, gracefully, every step making a silent statement that she belonged. The room that was prepared to mock her was stunned into silence. Conversations paused. Champagne glasses hovered in midair. Laughter faded into stillness, and all eyes locked on the woman who was supposed to embarrass herself, but instead commanded the room like a queen. The millionaire, initially lounging confidently in a designer suit with a wine glass in hand, choked a little when he recognized her. He whispered to his friends, expecting laughter, but none came. Everyone saw what he didn't plan for: a woman of dignity, pride, and magnetic confidence. She wasn't loud. She didn't confront anyone. She didn't expose the prank. She simply existed with so much poise that it made everyone else feel like they were the ones out of place. She greeted the host with a polite smile, accepted a drink offered by a confused server, and found her place in the corner of the room where the lighting kissed her skin like she was meant to be there. Conversations awkwardly resumed, but the tone of the night had shifted. The guests began questioning who she was. Some assumed she was royalty from another country. Others thought she might be an actress or philanthropist. No one dared ask the obvious question because something in her demeanor made it clear that ignorance would only embarrass them further. As she walked around, people began approaching her, trying to strike up conversations. They found themselves drawn in by her intelligence, her observations, her grace. She didn't talk about her job, and no one asked. She didn't share stories of cleaning floors, but she listened intently to stories about art, culture, and philanthropy, occasionally offering insights that revealed a deeply thoughtful mind. Hours passed. The woman who was meant to be a fleeting joke became the star of the night. Guests were talking about her even while she stood among them. "Who is she?" was the most repeated question of the evening. The millionaire who invited her started to feel the weight of his own humiliation, not because she called him out, she never did, but because she illuminated everything he lacked: class, depth, integrity. The joke had backfired and he knew it. His friends, watching closely, began to regard him differently, not as the bold prankster with a sharp sense of humor, but as a man insecure enough to mock others for entertainment. One guest, a businesswoman in her 40s, finally asked the cleaning lady directly, "I'm sorry, but I don't think we've met before. What do you do?" The room quieted again, as though holding its breath for the answer. The woman paused, sipped her drink, and replied, "I help people clean up, their lives starting with their homes." Her voice was calm but powerful, every word deliberate. There was no shame in her answer, only power, only truth. The questioner blinked, smiled, and nodded slowly. "Well, I'd say you're doing a remarkable job." By the end of the night, several people asked for her contact. A few offered business opportunities. One man offered to collaborate on a book about dignity and resilience. She accepted none of the offers that night. She wasn't there to network. She wasn't there to climb a ladder. She was there to walk tall in a room that tried to shrink her. And that she did. When she finally exited the estate, the same heads that turned when she entered now turned with admiration and wonder. Even the valet who opened the door for her did so with reverence. Bowing slightly without even realizing it, the millionaire watched her leave and sat down, finally understanding that real wealth isn't measured in currency, but in character. He looked around and realized the joke wasn't on her. It was on him, and everyone who laughed with him when the invitation was sent. His own arrogance had been exposed not by confrontation, but by contrast. She had done nothing but arrive and exist, yet it was enough to rewrite the story. In the days that followed, the story spread among his circle. Some denied the intention behind the invitation. Some defended it as satire. But most admitted privately that they had been humbled. The woman's name was remembered long after the event, not because of scandal, not because of drama, but because she represented something rare dignity unshaken. By disrespect, the cleaning lady became a legend, not because of what she did, but because of who she was. And no matter how many more parties the millionaire hosted, none were ever talked about the way that one was. A young woman had always lived in the shadows, her life shaped by hardship, silence, and rejection. She wasn't born with privilege or status, and every step forward in her life had come through pain, patience, and perseverance. Her parents had died when she was young, leaving her to navigate a world that had little time for orphans. She moved from foster home to foster home, often unwanted, occasionally mistreated, and almost always invisible. But something inside her refused to break. She observed, learned, and worked hard. She taught herself to read, to speak well, to listen, and to endure. Life never offered her shortcuts, but it taught her endurance, compassion, and above all, strength. Years later, she took a job as a cleaner in a corporate building where powerful men and women discussed investments, strategies, and million-dollar deals. She mopped floors while absorbing fragments of business conversations. She scrubbed toilets while memorizing stock tickers. She polished windows that reflected her own face tired, unnoticed, but not defeated. She started reading books discarded in the office bins, underlining phrases with pens left behind on desks. Quietly and consistently, she transformed herself. While others went home after work, she stayed behind to watch YouTube videos on business, finance, and self-development. Every night, she took notes. She even created a journal where she wrote down business ideas, marketing plans, and inspirational quotes. People passed her in the hallways without acknowledgement. Some even talked about her like she wasn't there. But she listened. She learned. She used every moment as an opportunity. She never begged for attention, never demanded recognition. She knew the world wouldn't hand her anything, so she decided to build everything from the ground up. One evening, after her shift, she walked into a free community workshop about entrepreneurship. The speaker was a local business coach who offered advice and strategies for small startups. She took detailed notes, asked questions after the session, and eventually became one of the regulars. It was the first time in her life that someone looked her in the eye and said, "You have potential." That single sentence was all she needed to ignite a spark. Over the next few months, she saved every spare penny she earned. She stopped buying new clothes, stopped eating out, and lived frugal. Eventually, she used her savings to register a small cleaning service. She named it after a word that had always inspired her, rise. It began with just her, one woman, one broom, one bucket, but her work ethic was unmatched. Her clients began to notice she never arrived late. She always left home spotless. She greeted everyone with warmth and never complained. Word of mouth spread. One house turned into 5. 5 turned into 20 within a year. She hired 3 more women, each of them with a similar story of hardship. She trained them not only to clean, but to believe in themselves. *Guy's cleaning services became known not just for its impeccable work, but for the spirit behind it. Customers admired the discipline and heart behind the company. Her story started getting attention. Local newspapers covered her journey. She was invited to speak at community events. She always dressed modestly, spoke humbly, and remained grounded. Her voice trembled at first when she stood behind podiums, but with each telling of her journey, she grew stronger.